Hello, everyone. My name is Edwin Ng, Principal at the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, and welcome to the introductory webcast to Exposure Draft 92, Tangible Natural Resources. This webcast will provide information on the IPSASB's Natural Resources Project, as well as a brief introduction to the proposals in ED 92. You can also find an at-a-glance summary of ED92 on the IPSASB's website at www.ipsasb.org. So without further ado, let's jump into why the IPSASB decided to focus on natural resources. Natural resources are prevalent in many jurisdictions and could make up a significant proportion of a country's financial position. Currently, there is no explicit guidance on natural resources in IPSAS or any other international accounting framework, so these resources are typically not reported in the general purpose financial statements. Because of this lack of reporting, the rights to natural resources are normally granted to third parties before their exploitation, so governments often have little idea of their monetary value until the resources are extracted. Some constituents have noted that this lack of information has led many governments to treat the sale of natural resources as a windfall, and this could lead to mismanagement from both a fiscal or environmental sustainability perspective. Based on these concerns, the development of accounting guidance for natural resources is important because it not only fills a gap in the IPSASB's literature, but is also expected to improve public financial management and could lead to better policy decisions for many governments. In addition to these concerns, the IPSASB also noted that the accounting for natural resources would be an important input into environmental sustainability. Thus, the development of guidance on natural resources forms part of the board's broader approach to addressing sustainability reporting. During the IPSASB strategy consultation in 2018, constituents strongly supported the development of financial reporting guidance on natural resources. In response, the IPSASB committed to developing financial reporting guidance on these resources and began the Natural Resources Project in 2020. Based on preliminary feedback from constituents, the IPSASB noted that the development of guidance for tangible natural resources, such as minerals and petroleum deposits, water, or living resources, was a greater priority than intangible natural resources. The IPSASB also noted that the accounting issues surrounding the use of intangible natural resources are much more in line with the accounting for intangible assets. As a result, the IPSASB decided to focus on tangible natural resources in this project. In May 2022, the IPSASB issued the consultation paper, Natural Resources. This consultation paper sets out the IPSASB's preliminary thinking on whether natural resources can be recognized as assets in accordance with the principles in the IPSASB's conceptual framework. Many respondents to the consultation paper generally agreed with the IPSASB's preliminary view that the recognition of natural resources based on the conceptual framework is possible, but noted that in practice, recognition may only be viable in very limited circumstances. Nevertheless, considering the original aim of the project, the IPSASB decided in March 2023 to proceed with the development of an exposure draft on the accounting for tangible natural resources. This exposure draft was approved in September 2024 as ED92, Tangible Natural Resources, and has a comment period ending February 2025. Once the comment period closes, the IPSASB will begin development of a final standard based on the feedback on ED92. This final IPSAS is expected to be approved in the second half of 2025. So what is the proposed guidance in ED92? To begin, let's talk about definitions. Based on feedback from the consultation paper, the IPSASB decided to define natural resources broadly. Natural resources are naturally occurring items which embodies service potential, the capability to generate economic benefits, or both. Tangible natural resources are natural resources with physical substance. The IPSAS purposely defined tangible natural resources broadly to include all tangible items meeting the above criteria. Because of the way the definition was formulated, some tangible natural resources which are held for a specific purpose could already be within the scope of an existing IPSAS. ED92 is scoped so that tangible natural resources, which are within the scope of an existing IPSAS based on their primary intended use, are excluded from the scope of the ED. For these items, an entity would apply the guidance in the existing IPSAS. For example, tangible natural resources which are held for sale or to be consumed within the production or provision of services are considered inventories and would be accounted for using IPSAS 12. Tangible natural resources which are primarily used to earn rental income or held for capital appreciation are considered investment properties within the scope of IPSAS 16. A tangible natural resource whose biological transformation is managed with the intention of selling or distributing the resulting biological assets are within the scope of IPSAS 27, agriculture. And finally, a tangible natural resource that is primarily used in the production of goods or services or used for administrative purposes and expected to have a useful life of more than one reporting period is considered a property, plant, and equipment within the scope of IPSAS 45. ED92 is essentially a residual standard in that if an item meets the definition of a tangible natural resource, but it's not within the scope of one of these existing IPSAS, then it is within the scope of ED92. One common example of something that could be within the scope of ED92 are tangible natural resources held for conservation. This is because conservation is typically not considered the same as using the resource in a way that places it within the scope of one of the existing IPSAS. In addition, conserving a tangible natural resource could be seen as providing service potential, as conservation would help an entity achieve the objective of preserving the resource for the benefit of future generations. Once a tangible natural resource is within the scope of ED92, the exposure draft proposes guidance on a recognition, measurement, and disclosure of the item. The recognition criteria in ED92 leverages the principles from the conceptual framework and is consistent with the recognition criteria in the IPSASs on other tangible assets. A tangible natural resource is recognized if the item embodies probable future economic benefits or service potential, is controlled as a result of past events, and can be reliably measured. The IPSAS decided to add emphasis on control, similar to biological assets, because for some tangible natural resources, the determination of control may not be straightforward as for constructed assets like property, plant, and equipment. In terms of the proposed measurement guidance, initial measurement is similar to IPSAS 45 and depends on whether control was acquired in a transaction in an orderly market. If control is obtained in a transaction in an orderly market, the tangible natural resource is measured at cost. If control is obtained from a transaction or event that is not part of an orderly market, the item is measured at deemed cost, which is usually current value. This can include events like discovery, the exercise of sovereign rights, transfers, and other non-exchange transactions. For subsequent measurement, the guidance is also similar to IPSAS 45 in that an entity has an accounting policy choice to carry a tangible natural resource at historical cost or current value. This election is made on a class-by-class basis. In terms of disclosures, ED92 requires the disclosure of the risk and nature of recognized tangible natural resources, as well as their effects on the financial statements. The exposure draft also proposes limited disclosures for tangible natural resources, which meet the definition of an asset but could not be recognized as they could not be reliably measured. In terms of next steps, the IPSASB encourages its constituents to comment on ED 92, and the deadline for the submission of comments is on February 28, 2025. ED 92 includes 8 specific matters for comment on which the IPSASB is seeking feedback. Respondents may choose to answer all the specific matters for comments or just a selective few, but more importantly, the IPSASB also welcomes comments on any other matters within the scope of a project that they feel should be considered. Comments can be submitted electronically through the IPSASB's website at www.ipsasb.org. After the comment period, all comments will be discussed by the IPSASB at its future public meetings, and the feedback will be considered when developing the final standard on tangible natural resources. This final IPSAS is expected to be approved in the second half of 2025. We've now come to the end of this introductory webcast on Exposure Draft 92, Tangible Natural Resources. For further information, please register at the IPSASB's website and subscribe for updates at www.ipsasb.org. The website will also indicate when feedback on the exposure draft will be discussed by the IPSASB at its future public meetings. I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.